Hi there, Jake here again.
And it's James again.
Let's talk about the beginning of day 78, because what we shipped was fairly straightforward. Henry listening to the tape recorder of the previous night's conversation. But in earlier versions of Firewatch, this was a lot more complicated. This was actually the day, or this morning was when Henry would discover a bunch of Brian Goodwin's stuff. His like peachy folder full of scribblings and homework and stuff was actually wedged into a drawer under Henry's desk, and he'd hit his head and it would fall out at the start of day 78 or earlier. Actually, we really liked the idea that players and Henry could find it at any time in the game up until this point, but it ended up creating this complete nest of madness, which you had to animate.
Yeah, because of these permutations of have you found the folder or not, and then needing a fail-safe at a certain point to advance the plot along, there were lots of different versions of getting the folder, and it was very complicated as well because we were tying it into things like getting the cave key at the same time as getting the folder, and the animation itself ended up being like pouring through tons of documents because it was like a postcard and his homework and like physically opening this thing, which ended up being a little bit silly because you realize we've already built systems whereby you can pick objects up and inspect them, so why are we forcing like 4 of those in a row in a cutscene? So I must have done probably, 5 or 6 pretty distinct versions of this, and then we cut it completely.
The folder falls out. The folder falls out, but then you pick it up, and then you read it, but then you found the keys. But what if you dropped the keys and then find the folder? Oh, man. Yeah. It was one of the biggest reliefs for me when we cut this and just put all of the folder stuff where it belongs in the world and the keys over on the backpack permanently. I was very worried that you would be sad that it was cut because it was so much animation work, but I feel like you were also relieved that it was finally just dead and buried and a superior version shipped.
Yes. The only thing I was ever sad about was we had a nice little interaction where you would grab keys, and for the first time in the game, a pickup would like fail and you sort of fumble the keys, right? And they go under the desk, which I always liked that animation. But what I will say is this: I have been making a Firewatch reel, and all this kind of stuff that got cut, I'm including it in the reel now, so I finally got on my cake.
Rude.
Now that I asked, I kind of just wish I hadn't.